In this session, I would like to go over Ubuntu 12.04 long-term support services, description of the services, and I'll go over the sudo command a little bit, the init process, the service command, the initctl command, the run level command, where System 5 services are stored, where Upstart init services are stored in their configuration files, the check config command, and how to stop a service, an Upstart service, from booting, how to kill a process, how to look at processes, and finally the inetd super service. All commands that require elevated privileges, you need to use sudo to run as the root user. Now, a little bit of a discussion of init. The init process is run by the kernel, and its process ID is always 1, and it will start up other processes and take over ownership of processes that have been orphaned by other processes. So there are two versions of init. Init was written for Unix, and under System 5, many Linux versions have ported over the System 5 Unix version of init. And however, many Linux versions, like Ubuntu and Debian-based versions, have created a new init process, which is referred to as Upstart. Now, Upstart is the name is still init, regardless of whether it's System 5 or Upstart, to be compatible with all systems. So, for System 5 services, to control a service, you use the service command. For Upstart init services, you use the init control initctl command. All right, so that's a little description of the init process. Now, one way to tell, an easy way to tell which services are System 5 and which services are Upstart services, is to simply look into the etc init directory for the sudo cd. Let's try that. Command not found. Sudo cd command not found. That was interesting. So these services, and actually I did a dir from Windows days, but apparently that works. These services, these are the configuration files for those services. This is not a fail-safe way of determining this, because you will also see, for example, the Avahi daemon can be controlled by the service command. To determine which services are System 5, you can also look in the etc and the number of the run level .d directories. Run levels are, if I do the run level command, I notice that my previous run level is none because I just booted, and my current run level is 2. In Ubuntu, run level 0 is shut down. Run level 1 is single mode user. Run levels 2 through 5 are graphical users, graphical multi-user interfaces, and 6 is a reboot. So we're in run level 2. So to see which services will start on boot up in run level 2, which system 5 services, we look at etc rc2.d directory. And these are services that are started up at boot. The S meaning start. And then the number is to ensure that the services start up sequentially, because it'll start them alphabetically. That's one disadvantage of System 5, is that it can only start the System 5 init process is that it can only start services in a sequential manner. With the upstart init process, upstart can start services simultaneously, taking advantage of today's parallel processing. So that's why we're moving to the upstart process, but not all services have been converted over to upstart. So these are services that we know are controlled by the service command. Now earlier I said the Avahi daemon was an upstart, but it can be controlled by the service command. If I do a service status all, I'm going to do sudo service --status -all. This will show me the status of the System 5 services that the system knows about. And you notice that it has question marks on many of them. Well, I guess the Avahi daemon is listed as a question mark. So it doesn't know what to do with that because it's an upstart init process. However, I have been able to service Avahi, and it knows about it because I hit tab, status, and it tells me it's running. Now that also means, that may mean that I can stop it. And when I get that message, that means I did not use sudo. So I was able to control it with the stop command. Now if I want to so I just stopped the service. If I want to keep it from booting, then I would do check config Avahi daemon, and I'm going to just look at it. Right now it says it's set to off. If I set it to on, then I get that strange error message. When you get this error message of sbin inserv no such file or directory, that means that there's no symbolic link to the location, the actual location of the inserv process. And the way to fix that is to sudo ln for link, -s for symbolic, and now I'm going to give the path of the actual file, which is in user lib inserv, and then the path to the link, which is in sbin inserv. Now that I've created that symbolic link, I can actually look at so I'm going to list all in long format, sbin inserv, and you see that I created, this says that it's a link, and that this process actually, process is actually physically located at user bin inserv. And that's what this message was complaining about, is that it did not know where, it's running sbin inserv, but there's no link to it, so it didn't know where to find it. So now if I run my check config Avahi on, I get this kind of stuff. Well, that's kind of normal. What this is saying, these LSB tags, so in-service runs and runs through these processes. What this means, this LSB tags and override, missing LSB tags and overrides, is with the upstart process, there is a, let's see if I can look at one that looks good. It's in the etc init directory for the actual scripts, and if you do a sudo grep begin init in all files, you'll see that these files have the Linux standards-based header. And so if we just look at, and that I got that from this location, wikidebian.org, lsb init scripts, which describes it. This is the header information, and if this header information is not present in an init script, then it's not upstart compatible. So, and I just for your information, I switched to a different workspace where I have that, and then I can just go back to my terminal. So those programs that don't have that are not upstart compatible. If we look at just one of those, I think AppArmor was one. If I do a more AppArmor, there we go. There's the script, and there you go. There's the Linux standards-based or LSB compatible header. So if I do a list of these services, I will see the services that are upstart. And so if I want to use init control, initctl, to status the Avahi daemon, it knows what it is. There it is, it's running. If I want to stop it, I can do initctl stop Avahi daemon, and that stops it. Now if I want to keep it from starting at boot up, then I simply rename, as I have done, the bluetooth.conf old. I renamed the bluetooth.conf to bluetooth.conf-old, and that service will no longer be known. Status Bluetooth. It doesn't know what it is. So that's how you stop a service from booting. A shortcut to init control is just to use the parameter status, job name, or start, stop, restart, reload, and the job name. You don't have to actually use initctl. Now I would have to use the sudo to start, stop, and restart. A little bit about the inetd. Inetd is the super service that listens on ports and then listed in its config file and starts up processes there. So if I wanted to do to see what's started by that, I'm going to cd to the etc folder or directory, and I'm going to look at the inetd file. And these services are all handled by inetd. So, and for example, the telnet service is started, but it's not going to be started by, if I do a ps ef grep telnet, it's not there. That's just the grep command, right? Telnet is not actually running. However, the telnet port, if I look at the telnet port by searching in etc services, which is a file that lists the ports, the services in their ports, I'll see that port 23, telnet is on port 23. If I do a netstat, network status, so this says netstat, give me all ports, but no, do not resolve their names. And then I'm going to grep :23, which is the port for telnet. And we see that TCP on port 23 for all interfaces, this means all zeros means all interfaces, is listening, is being listened to. If I say I want to tell me the process that's listening to that by adding the P, I could not identify it. Let me try that with a sudo. There we go. You notice that 3489 inetd is listening. Now if I look at, so this is the process command, looks at the processes that are running on the system. -ef means all and full layout. And then I'm going to search on inetd. And I will see that exactly right, 3489 is user sbin inetd. So telnet is available, and when a connection is attempted using telnet, the inetd service, based on this line, will start this process as it's needed. So the idea is that you don't have a bunch of resources tied up waiting for very rarely connecting processes. So enabled to stop that telnet service, I will I'm going to gedit, let me sudo this, inetd.conf, and bring that out front. Where'd it go? There it is. So all I got to do is put a # in front of this to remark it out, and you notice that this says that I need to save. So I click save, get out of that, and go back to this file. And okay, there we go. I had to hit Control C to get that back. Now if I'm I have changed that, and there's telnet has been pounded out. You'll see though from the netstat, you'll see from the netstat, oops, that's not what I want to do. I want to do 346. I want to do 347. We'll just do this sudo. That it's still the same process is still running, and TCP or Telnet is still active. So I have to restart. I've got to stop and start the inetd process. So I need to know what that process is. That's where my ps-ef grep inetd comes in. Now I want to kill this process and then restart it. This gives me the path to the process. So I'm going to kill the process, the current process, by kill-9, and I'm going to double click that, hit my mouse wheel to paste it back in. I've just killed the process. And you notice it's not there. It's just seeing my grep. So now I'm going to start that process up again, and I'm going to go to this line where I knew where it was, and I'm going to select it and double click, and single click my mouse wheel, and now I've started it. And so we're going to see the PS. There it is. It's got a brand new process ID. And then we're going to do the netstat again. And you notice it's not there. So I've killed the netstat process from starting up. And that is all I wanted to cover on services today.